Now, in the month of June last year, 3 Chinese naval vessels had docked in Karachi harbour, and over the next 3 days it held joint exercises with the Pakistani Navy. Now, Pakistan is a major buyer of Chinese military hardware, including naval surface ships and submarines. Now, it underscored the point that the two navies can at some point in the future combine forces against India. But there is a larger issue here. Now, many Indian strategists believe that Pakistan is one link in China's plan to encircle and bottle up India in the South Asia box. Now, this, of course, is being called the string of pearls strategy on the part of China, and was first articulated nearly 14 years ago in a report that was titled Energy Futures Asia. Now, the report was in fact sponsored by the director of the NET assessment in the office of the US Secretary of Defense. Now, the aim was to explore the Indian and the Chinese thinking of their energy security and their vulnerabilities, and is to have satisfying their energy demands but actually shape the actions of both these countries in Asia. Now, let's look at this map to understand China's vulnerabilities and how its actions have underscored India's vulnerabilities. Now, China turned a net oil importer in the year 1993 and today depends on the Arab oil to meet about 80% of its energy requirements. Now, a lot of this oil comes from the Persian Gulf, chiefly Iran. Now, it explains China's investments in the Gwadar port in Pakistan and also the adjoining Jivani port, which along with an airfield is being developed into a major military base. On the Horn of Africa in Djibouti, China had inaugurated a military base in August last year. The Djibouti sits on the northwestern edge of the Indian Ocean. Further south in Sri Lanka, China has signed a 99-year lease for the Hambantota port at the close of last year. Now, Hambantota overlooks the Indian Ocean sea lanes through which China's energy supplies pass. Now, the Indian Navy suspects Hambantota will emerge as a major port of call for the Chinese submarines in Bangladesh. China is reported to be pushing to develop a small naval facility near Chittagong. Recall that China is selling the Bangladesh Navy 2 submarines as a part of the deal. And also, in the case of Myanmar, companies want a stake of up to 80% in the port of Koyak Pyu in the Bay of Bengal. Now, China may be driven by concerns of securing its energy supplies, but there is absolutely no doubt that a military strategy also exists. Now, if the Bangladesh and Myanmar plans fructify, China would effectively have countered India from the Arabian Sea to the Indian Ocean and also the Bay of Bengal, virtually circling the Indian peninsula. Now, India is also trying to counter China with the Chabahar port development in Iran. The Chabahar is 230 kilometers from Gwadar and provides an alternative route to Afghanistan. Now, in Sri Lanka, reports say that India wants to take over the Hambantota airport and is building military ties with Bangladesh and with Myanmar as well. Now, it had recently signed an agreement to use Singapore's Changi naval base. Now, India is working to develop the quadrilateral or Quad, which is an alliance which includes Japan, the United States and also Australia, and is committed to reinforcing the right of free passage in the South China Sea. Now, it is working to build military ties with Vietnam, including access to Cam Ranh Bay on the South China Sea region. Now, there's been intense speculations as to whether India will sell Vietnam the BrahMos supersonic cruise missiles, and this, of course, could be key and instrumental in determining as to how India will be expanding its influence in Southeast Asia. In the last 2 years, Chinese troops have stepped up their transgressions into Indian territory, where in the month of March in the year 2016, the Chinese troops had entered almost 6 kilometers inside the Indian territory near the Pangong Tso Lake area in Ladakh. Then, in the month of June next year, 2 Chinese choppers were spotted in the Chamoli district of Uttarakhand. The very next month saw the Indian and the Chinese troops locked in an eyeball-to-eyeball confrontation at Doklam. Both sides simultaneously withdrew in the month of August after a confrontation of almost 74 days. Now, during the Doklam standoff, the Chinese troops also made incursions of up to 1 kilometer inside the Indian territory in Uttarakhand's Barahoti. The latest transgression was reported in December last year, which was in last month in the Tooting area of Arunachal Pradesh. Now, here the Chinese road building teams entered almost 1 kilometer inside the Indian territory. Now, we spoke to Imtiaz Gul, who's a senior journalist from Islamabad earlier. Let's listen in to what he had to say about these incursions.
Is there concern that Pakistan is increasingly becoming more and more dependent on China?
Well, I don't think there's a... I would say that there is also another angle to look at it, and that is that China, too, is also becoming dependent on access to the Arabian Sea, to the Indian Ocean, on Pakistan, because it is sticking its neck out. It's pouring in some investment, some loans, which are partially cause of concern for a lot of Pakistanis. But as a whole, by the end of 2022, I think China would have spent about $45 billion on a number of road infrastructure projects, on communications, on energy. Energy shortages, I think, will end within next 1 year, and this is because of the injection of a few $1 billion that China has made in the last couple of years, ever since we signed the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor agreements. So as a whole, I don't think that this can be seen as an irretrievable dependence on China. It cuts both ways. It's a need-based arrangement that both countries have willingly entered into. And I think if one were to look at the geopolitics and the geoeconomics, this partnership, even if it's making or increasing dependence of Pakistan on China, probably would be welcome for the people of Pakistan because of the employment generation, because of the additional infrastructure that is coming about.